The first day we got it, Dad used the restroom and the sewage then ended up on the basement floor because the sewage pipe was all rusted out. If it's a 30% discount, I'll look at anything in the worst house, best neighborhood type situation. What I really enjoy doing is presenting that cash deal.
I was like, darn, all these leads are coming at the same time. I hate when that happens.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have, right? Welcome to another episode of the Agent to Investor podcast, where we talk about the agent side of real estate investing. We'll be talking about the successes, the failures, and all in between. My name is Nico Garcia, local real estate investor and agent based out of Montgomery County, Maryland. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host,
Anna Bialik, Northern Virginia realtor and mostly out-of-state investor.
And today we have another wonderful guest. We have Mr. Joel Sizemore. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Joel Sizemore. I'm from Southeast Kentucky, now living in Lexington, Kentucky.
Yeah, awesome. And Joel is part of our community with RPM, and we had a great time meeting him earlier this year in Charlotte in person. But we wanted to have him come on and talk about his journey in real estate. And, he's in the builder phase like Anna and I. This can be really relatable to people that are looking to scale their business. But before we go into that, we'd love to know a little bit about you. I know you mentioned you're from Kentucky. What initially got you into the real estate space?
Yeah, my dad, he did rental properties growing up, and I kind of worked hand in hand with him, the 5 or 6 year old, chopping wood and writing receipts and doing whatnot they needed done. I think one summer during middle school, I worked for him, making $4 an hour and got to like $350, but just got to see how well it helped our family. And there was a year he went without pay, and that pretty much saved our butts.
Wow. Your dad, does he currently still have a rental portfolio?
Okay. Yeah, they actually just paid off all their rentals, so they're fully debt free and just trying to get everything in shape as far as maintenance and keep everything going. And
they're heading towards
too.
The ender phase. They're ready to be done. So did he have a history in real estate? What brought him into wanting to invest, which of course influenced you going forward? Like, how did he get into it?
Yeah, I've kind of had conversations with him about that, and it sounds to me like he's just found good deals that came up to him as he was in the neighborhood, like driving for dollars, and he ended up just wheeling and dealing. He's a really good negotiator, and understood that for his wife to stay home with the kids, that he's going to have some other type of income besides his regular job.
So that's pretty cool that you got to work alongside with your dad. I can totally relate. I still currently am working with my dad on fixing flips and things like that. So what, from the early stages, right? Like what did he teach you? I know you were helping out with manual labor, but what did he teach you about the actual real estate investing side?
Yeah, I feel like we didn't get into the nitty gritty until it came into where I started wanting to buy my own. And so in college, I kind of like looked at some certain stuff, but whereas so far from home, we didn't really buy anything there. And then when I moved to Lexington, I ended up just finding like a 6-month sublease, and we started looking for deals, and we started looking for duplexes because I feel like that's how everybody tries to start out, and ended up the market is too crazy in 2020. So we went with like single family homes instead, and that ended up being pretty successful for us. And so that's when we got into nitty-gritty, when we just figured out how lending works and just use his resources and outside resources like podcasts and stuff like that, and learn from him and his resources, his lenders and his insurance people that he uses and stuff like that.
Okay, so you were heading off to college. You were looking for a place to live. I want to make sure I'm recapping the story correctly. And then you were looking for a duplex, but market was crazy. So you did end up purchasing a single family home?
Yeah, so it was when I moved to Lexington for my full-time job after I graduated college.
Okay.
And so, yeah, started looking for a duplex, and then we ended up shifting gears just because the market is too crazy. And foreclosure was what we were going towards, but we noticed that like all the houses were like getting canceled, and they were also just going way too high when they did go to auction. And so as we were driving around scouting them out before the auction, we're like, man, these ones are getting canceled. There's like people outside just like talking to these property owners. So we started adapting that idea, and that's how I got my first deal. But it's funny because instead of me being able to live there, the previous owner wanted to stay and rent. And he even said, he was like, this is an answered prayer and everything. So that was amazing. But then I still need to find a place to live. So I ended up like couch surfing for almost a year. And as we tried to finish the walkout basement, and I was going to basically house hack, but after the fact. And then there's an abandoned house beside it. So I ended up buying that and finishing the house hack almost at the same time. So we ended up renting the whole house, and I just lived in the abandoned house.
So Joel, before we actually go into this house hack,
Yeah.
'cause I think it's pretty cool what you're doing. I'd love to talk about what you ended up studying in school and what your day job currently is, because I think it's relevant to your investing journey, right? So what did you end up studying, and then what's your day job currently?
Yeah, so I studied civil engineering. I also took the surveying elective classes, which kind of got me into that field by accident at work. And so when I got to my job, there was some need for the survey work. And so I ended up taking a lot of that duty. And so I learned a lot there. My dad also did surveying and engineering. Him and my grandpa did engineering. So that was all very influential in going towards that. But yeah, so surveying really helped a lot as far as researching property information, like getting into the deeds, getting the right legal descriptions for work. So mapping out the lot lines and the easement lines, and also researching what the existing information is and finding the property corners, even though I don't even know where all my property corners are at. So kind of slacked there. But engineering's also helped a ton. Like my boss, I went up to him when we were going from 100 amp to 200 amp and putting all that together by ourselves. And he coached us. He's like, nope, this you did wrong, and helped us put all the right pieces together. But also just like the sewage standpoint and understanding like the life of materials, and just like how all the utilities go together and how they work with the city too. So I think it's helped doing that as a daily job to put that knowledge into myself automatically.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, lots of investors I know pay a pretty penny to other people that have your skill set to help them figure out where easements are, where lot lines fall, how to bring utilities into a property that doesn't have utilities. So you can do that. You're like a one-stop shop here.
Thanks.
Yeah. So Joel, you can essentially, when you're looking at these properties, a potential investment property, you have resources yourself to able to look at property lines and things like that before you actually pull the trigger.
So I just Lexington makes it really easy to find a lot of this information online for free. The more rural counties, you have to pay a subscription, stuff like that. So I haven't got too nitty gritty there yet. But in Lexington, I do get into nitty gritty of finding pre-foreclosures and understanding like what's existing with them, the mortgages, if there's like a second mortgage and stuff like that. And yeah, understanding like how to find where the sewage and water lines are right now and stuff. Kentucky makes that pretty friendly. And yeah, I think.
I got you.
Okay. His answer made me think of a different question. Here we go for the rulings. No, because you said, Joel, you said that first property you bought, it was someone that was in distress, clearly, and you went up and you were able to provide a solution for him, and he wanted to stay. Like, how did you approach him? I assume other people had approached him. Like, how did you engage with this property owner and open up that conversation and figure out what you could do for it to be win-win for both of you?
Yeah. It was about 4 years ago now. It was actually probably our first intro to door knocking for leads. And that's what we started doing as we were trying to find that first property. And we just simply went to his door and said, hey, we understand you're in foreclosure. I actually scouted it out first and took a picture, and I have the like first picture of what it looked like. So it's funny to do the before and after. But yeah, there's a little bit of a language barrier, but he was pretty good with English. And then they also, like when we did a second meeting, brought a translator from the church that they went to help. And mom was actually the one that was on the deed. And she even shed some tears as the pastor was translating, just like how it was an answered prayer. And it's pretty impactful and just gave some like motivation to do things in a moral way of trying to provide a solution and not just a wealth building asset.
I love that strategy, Joel, is to look at pre-foreclosures because it can be a win-win, right? I shared my story about how I was able to help somebody save their home. They were going to lose their home. And I'm sure it was similar to you and your experience. So essentially you come in as in the investing. And this is a pretty cool story as your first property, right? You're going in and most people get a base hit or they go on the MLS and they look for a home, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? But you had a little bit of knowledge from your B2, but also from your dad. And you said, hey, I want to target this specific asset type. And I actually wanted to talk about this house hack because something similar happened to me when I was looking for a house hack. I was looking for a multifamily, right? And in my market, it was just a little bit harder. They were expensive. The numbers just didn't really make sense. So I shifted, similar to you, to a single family home. So talk to me about this first deal. I know you mentioned it was a pre-foreclosure. What made it appealing for you as a house hack?
So something I didn't understand at the time was value add, at least the term, but I understood the concept because of engineering and seeing my dad do projects. And so seeing the unfinished walkout basement and walking through it the first time, we already knew that we kind of wanted to finish it just to add some ways to make more money off of it. And then we're like, well, if they want to stay here, then I can just live down here. And then, of course, like I said, we ended up shifting gears. They ended up living there for 3 years. And then as of this summer, I moved into it and we did a 7-month renovation before that, just getting everything up to date. There was a penny countertop and just a lot of old features to the part that we hadn't touched yet, and is in disrepair too. No insulation on the outside walls and minimal outlets, no overhead lighting. So just a lot of projects that need to be done before it was considered finished. And so I moved into the top and got the idea from you as far as a midterm rental instead of doing long-term leases for the basement. And got a little nervous as far as furnishings. So I got lucky with this one because it was a friend who, her and her fiance are in between getting a house and moving out of their places. And so they're just doing month to month until they find the house that they want to purchase. And so they had some furniture that they want to move in between. That way they didn't have to get a storage unit. And then, also had somebody reach out as far as being a roommate. So didn't really have any intentions of needing a roommate, but it made sense actually doing a midterm and a roommate in the same house. So I'll be over fully occupied.
What does that do for your cash flow? Are you cash flowing with these tenants in the property?
Yeah, I'll be cash flowing pretty good because the numbers when I purchased it, I think I purchased it for around 92,000 or something like that. And then of course appraised for more. We put a lot into it, but I consider all my income that I put into it as far as investment money. And so as far as PITI and my maintenance should be pretty minimal where we've done most of the work already. So just figuring out the kinks. And yeah, that should be as far as the current goes. But we'll see how it goes as far as listing and knitting up what future midterm people might like and not like.
So Joel, talk to me about the renovations that you ended up doing in the basement. So I know you mentioned when you bought it was an unfinished basement and you saw potential. And I've been following your journey on social media and you decided to do some renovations. So did you add a bedroom or how does it look now?
Yeah, so it was completely unfinished. There was like a cousin living down there with some tarp walls, so nothing. And we actually had to do a lot of like prep projects, as in we had to dig pretty far down after making a hole in the concrete base of the basement to put a grinder sump pump because the sewage goes out between the basement and the first floor. And so instead of doing individual pumps at every sewer location, it made more sense. Jackhammer lines to the sump pump and route everything to it and then pump it out of the house right there. And then, of course, we decided to do some projects that weren't necessarily always necessary. Like we wanted to put the electric underground where we were doing all this work. And mainly because that just added value and made things cleaner. And so that was a pretty big project. And then we ended up adding an exit and doing 2-bed, 2-bath, and kind of apartment style with a shared kitchen and laundry. So they each had their own exit to the outside. And then they also had their own entrance to like the shared kitchen and laundry area. And so they all have their own little outdoor locks to their entrances into their living quarters so they can lock everything up that they need secure and then keep everything in the shared area that they want in there.
Okay, so you actually converted the basement to 2 bedrooms and 2 separate bathrooms? Okay.
Yeah, so
good
all
size,
in
good
the
size
house
bed.
is 5-bed, 4-bath.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, you saw the potential, the space, and you were able to do that. Did you have to do any egress windows for the actual bedrooms?
For the one apartment that doesn't have a direct exit, the windows are appropriate size, so we're fine there. And then the other side had an exit straight out of the bedroom, so I think we met all the requirements necessary.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a good point because I don't think a lot of people realize that like they call it a bedroom because, oh, this is big enough. It's got 4 walls. Maybe it has a closet, but that's the key is it has to have a way out in case there's a fire. So it may have a window, but if it's a little window and an average adult doesn't fit through it, that doesn't qualify as a bedroom.
Hey, like Joel, were you doing all this work yourself? Did you hire it out or how did that look?
I've been pretty blessed that my dad's retired and is helping me. We've hired different people for different projects like the tile and the drywall and mudding, but we did the framing ourselves. We did the insulation, a lot of the electrical, plumbing, and sewage. My favorite project was the utility closet because we've got like the hot water heater, the grinder pump, and all the plumbing kind of all tucked in together. So my dad's been a big blessing as far as just using his workers and stuff like that to do the hard work and then bringing in different people that we met in the community for more of the skilled work.
Yeah. Every time I tell people that my dad's in the business, they're like, oh, you're so lucky. So I'm sure you get that all the time right now with all the help that you're able to do. But
One day I'll have to shift.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to touch base about midterm renting. So for those who don't know what that is, what is the midterm renting route and why would, in your opinion, is it a good option for you?
Yeah, so I'm still learning all the benefits and if it's going to work out based off of my location. But in theory, you should be able to rent it out a little bit more than if you're long-term renting these spaces. And you pretty much provide a furnished area that if someone's traveling to the area that they're expected to just bring their clothes and necessities that they need and then live there for 1 to 6 months. If you're over 30 days, you don't have to have the short-term permit in Lexington. So that was one of the big benefits as in trying it because I didn't have to go through the whole permit process for an Airbnb because I'll be over that 30-day mark. And so I figured I'd try it, see how well it works because there's a new hospital that was built a couple exits away from my house. So I figured if I could market towards that hospital, it could be pretty successful. And the other abandoned house I got also has an unfinished walkout basement. So if this idea works pretty well, then I think we can just replicate that.
Yeah, Joel, I agree. It's like the sweet spot, right? You don't have to do the short term and have a huge turnover, and you don't have to have a long term lease if you don't, like the tenant per se. It's one of the main reasons why I got into it here locally. And like you said, traditionally it was like it started as for traveling nurses, definitely in the COVID boom. But now it's really, and I love your story about how you had some friends that are in between houses looking to buy their home because, that can be a good tenant. It can be those digital nomads, people that are just traveling to the area. There's so many different ways that you can market to these people that you don't have to be tied into a long lease. And one of the benefits, at least in my area, is you're able to charge a little bit more than the traditional long-term would as a furnished rental. So I love the route and I'm looking forward to hearing how it goes for you. And hopefully you can continue doing it on this next one. So I did want to touch on that next property. I know this was a property that you bought 4 years ago, the one that you're currently living in. Talk to us about how you got that next property and what that looked like.
Yeah, so I've kind of been going for the goal of one property a year, and I kind of shoot for around 30% discount. Didn't know that at the time, but now I've kind of figured out that's my strategy. And so there was an abandoned house right beside it. Every day working on it, you're like, oh, I really want that house. And so one day I go on PVA and I find her mailing address, and instead of like trying to send postcards and everything, we ended up just going and knocking on the door. And it was a pretty far drive, long driveway, kind of seemed a little sketchy, but nice lady. And it ended up her husband had bought it as an investment property for her kids when they're going to college, and that just ended up not getting used. And so there was definitely some things wrong with it. The first day we got it, Dad used the restroom, and the sewage then ended up on the basement floor because the sewage pipe was all rusted out. So that was our first project. But yeah, so the part that I like to share is like, I was talking about it in my neighborhood group for church, and the lawyer that I go to church with, he's like, do you have a buyer's agreement? And I'm like, what do you mean? So then he told me all about a buyer's agreement because I wasn't using a realtor. And so then he provided this really good buyer's agreement, and I really wanted the deal. The lady ended up second guessing, and thankfully my lawyer was a really good lawyer. So we ended up getting the deal taken care of. I got it for 85 and it appraised for 135. And so ended up moving into it after some big projects. There was a lot of mold in the basement. There must have been a leak where the water comes into the house, and just got repaired and then not reclamated. And once we found out where that horrible smell is coming from, it was a pretty bad project of tearing out all the drywall and insulation that was just pure soaking wet, and probably like that for 3 years, and spraying kills on it. So that was a big project, and Mom was like, you're not living in there until that smell's out of there. And we ended up like trying to tear out the basement or the bathroom that they put in the basement, and just trying to figure out where the smell was, and just started tearing out drywall until we found it. Always some things to learn about with each property.
Joel, I wanted to circle back though, because you mentioned a few things, right? You mentioned you went door knocking. It sounds like for both of these properties, you went door knocking, which is, for those of you who don't know how to get deals, Joel's out there actually knocking on people's doors. He's doing his due diligence beforehand. He knows that these people are possibly interested in selling. One is, how did you structure it? How did you write offers? I know Anna's mouth opened when you said you didn't use an agent. So we're just curious, how did you actually get these deals under contract? Did you leverage that lawyer?
Yeah, so I actually haven't used an agent yet. Nothing against agents, just gotten pretty confident and leaned on my lawyer with that buyer's agreement. He said if I needed him to review it, he'd sure do that. But after that first deal, he definitely went back and forth. I actually didn't use him for the first one, but for the second one with the abandoned one that I moved into, he reviewed it. We went back and forth and perfected it. And then I used a title attorney back in Corbin, who is a lot farther from Lexington, but he's just who we like to use. And they drove all the way to Lexington to help us work it out. So I've ended up using that title attorney for every deal since, just because one of the other attorneys in the area said, yeah, he's a little too detailed. And I'm like, I like that. He's just been a really good resource, and we figured out how to get deals done in a way that makes it friendly for the seller and the buyer to save some money. But yeah, so the 2 deals after my other long-term rentals, I just ended up, I think one of the buyer's agreements, my young life leaders got frustrated with me because I was just typing the buyer's agreement in the back seat on the way to one of our camps.
Awesome. It sounds, were there listing agents on the other end, or was it directly you and the seller and then the title attorney?
Yeah, so the third one, I was mowing at the end of my parents' driveway, and I saw a yard sale sign, and I'm like, is the house for sale too? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, how much do y'all want for it? And they're like, we think what you got for it about 5 years ago, so 80. And my dad drove up and was like, I think he gave 70 for it because it had gone on foreclosure. Our friends had lived in it long while back and stuff like that. So we'd seen this house be transferred through names, And so I ended up getting that one for 70 and appraised for 110. And then this other guy, my dad accidentally butt dialed and he called us back, and my dad's kind of stopped buying. So he just passes his leads to me. So I didn't have to door knock for that one. But yeah, that was the one that I wrote the buyer's agreement for in the back seat and ended up getting that deal too.
That's cool. I'm seeing a theme here. You're buying good deals and you're buying them at that 30, maybe more discount because they're appraising for higher than what you're actually purchasing it, which is awesome. They say you make money when you buy real estate. And I'm just curious because I know one of the benefits of house hacking is the down payment, lower down payment. How are you financing these other projects? Were you using partners, or how did you end up going with those?
So I don't necessarily mind to put down the extra down payment just where I have that steady income from my engineering job. I can work up the down payment to make my debt less, to make my cash flow better. But doing is presenting that cash deal or cash purchase so that they see it as they're getting a better deal because it's cash and it's quick. So what we did on the first one that I kind of learned a lesson on, my dad has a IRA that he can borrow from, or a retirement account that he can borrow from once a year. And so we'll borrow from that. We present the cash offer. We have to pay that back in 60 days or he ends up having to keep it. And so that goes on to taxes and stuff. So the first one, we didn't know about a 6-month seasoning period, or at least I didn't. So we kind of got stuck there. And so ended up waiting out the 6 months, refied, paid him back, and got down a 30-year fixed primary. Then the other ones, the second one, I ended up just doing a purchasing loan with a regular down payment. And then the third one did a purchasing investment property. But what I really like doing was with the last one, we figured out that our local credit union doesn't do the 6-month seasoning for the 1515, or I don't think any of their refis. And so we're going to utilize that now as far as presenting that cash offer, getting that quick turnaround of the refi, paying him back, and then I think that'll be a good flow.
Creative financing at its best. When you do these refis, do you cash out just what you need to pay back your dad's loan, or do you take out extra so you can pay for renovations? How are you paying for the renovations on the properties?
I just cash out to pay dad back, although I think I've learned a new strategy of recording a loan with him, and then you may get better closing prices with that. So I'm going to try that next, but just enough to pay him back and just keep my cash flow better. And then I just simply put up my own income towards the projects and try to keep afloat. If I need my parents to kick in, they'll kick in and I'll pay them back. And we've got a pretty good partnership going.
Yeah, I had a tip from actually another investor friend. He uses no interest credit cards, and I think it's called like credit card flipping or whatever, to fund some rehabs and things like that and pay it off within a year, which could be a great tool. So Joel said a few different ways, self-directed IRAs. There's so many different ways where you can fund projects.
I hope to soon, when that resource is either stuck because it's in that year time period, open up like a multi-property line of credit with the equity that I built to do that same process of presenting that cash offer, doing that quick refi, paying it back.
Talk to me about, I know you're in the Lexington, Kentucky market. Is that the only place you invest? And why do you think it's a good place to invest for investors?
Yeah, so 2 of my properties are in Lexington. The other 2 are back towards my hometown. And that's really just because we understand the market back home really well. And it's easy to do property management. I mean, the one is right across from mom and dad's house. So I just go home on the weekend and pick up the rent. And we understand the market down there really well and have good resources. So I would do both markets. I think I'd love to try Bowling Green one day if I could maintain that far away. And I think I've got a good network down there, just because I understand that market and it's kind of my college town. So maybe that'll be the triangle of investing for me. But yeah, just doing that one a year and trying to pay the debt off quick. I've got it structured to where I'm paying off all the loans except for my first one on that good interest rate at a 15-year structure instead of the 30-year.
Awesome. Awesome. Definitely benefits of investing in your backyard. I do the same. And I know Anna has a property locally, but she does a lot of out of state investing. So those who are looking to do the out of state investing, we always encourage you to have either an agent that really is market specific to that area, or be like Joel and you understand the market that you plan on investing, because you really want to know what's a good street, what isn't a good street, what neighborhoods you think are appreciated in. And if you don't have that yourself, really have to leverage somebody that does. Joel, you have any ambitions to going out of state? I know Kentucky is it sounds like it's a great cash flow market with lower price points, which is usually appealing to out of state investors. So are you planning on just staying locally?
Yeah, I really like or Kentucky, like you said, just because it's a really landlord friendly state, and Lexington's good for appreciation. My hometown's good for cash flow. And so I kind of get the plus minus there. And so I don't know if I'll go out of state. My dad does have one that we kind of fell into in Tennessee. But I think if I did, it would either be to help a friend get into investing or to just experiment, maybe once I've kind of settled through the builder phase. So no plans right now, though.
Yeah. No, I love that goal of one property a year. And I think it's achievable, right? To scale your business. And I think the longer you get into this, having that one property a year goal is fantastic. But I think you end up getting one or two or three sometimes a year just by, continuously having that conversation, and the universe kind of speaks to you and deals kind of fall in your lap, at least in my experience. Have you experienced something like that as well, Joel?
Yeah, last year I ended up having to be pretty conservative on some offers just because of the position I was in with renovations going on and starting up. So it was one lead I was pursuing for 3 solid years, and I just gave a very conservative offer and lost out on that one. And there was a couple others I lost out on that the lead just came through and had to give an offer on. And so there's definitely been opportunities. I'm like, maybe I'll get my second one this year and have to find a way to make that work. And we're back to a year, so going to be looking for my first one after I get done studying for my engineering exam, having to put real estate lead pursuits on the back burner right now. But yeah, I've definitely had that come up where leads all come at one time and you're like, uh-oh.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have, right?
Yeah.
Did you have a question?
No, I was just laughing because I was like, darn, all these leads are coming at the same time. I hate when that happens.
So Joel, I wanted to talk, it sounds like you learned a ton going through it, right? With your house hack, with renovations, with door knocking and getting creative on finding the deal. But I also wanted to touch on community, right? You joined a community that Anna and I are a part of with Coach Carson, but how has that helped you become a better investor?
Yeah, and mainly just say as far as accountability goes is weekly goals, quarterly goals, and just trying to be a little more deadline with things, renovations. If you sit on them for a while, they can procrastinate themselves and push on and on. So if you set goals and deadlines for certain parts of the projects and just working on that skill, and time management is a big thing when you're doing a W-2 job and volunteering outside of work. I think it's helped as far as accountability with all those different things. And then even just networking in Lexington, getting lunch with different folks and being present on social media has accidentally helped. I've had a buddy reach out about just getting to know about investing and different people wanting to chat about more than I would have thought. So
yeah, the power of social media is crazy. It's tough to do in the beginning, right? And I know Anna and I talk about this all the time. It's just putting your face out there. Oh, what if I fail? Or what if I look stupid? And you have all these stories, right? But like you said, putting up your projects, people, it's a conversation starter. People are like, oh, Joel's doing like a renovation. How does that look? Oh, he's house hacking. He's midterm renting. Oh, what is that? And it opens the conversation that wouldn't be there before if you're just not sharing at all. So that's been very beneficial. One of the reasons why Anna and I started this is to also have accountability, also have constant conversations and putting stuff out on social media to let everyone know what we're up to, who our friends are and what they're up to, kind of thing. I know it's rough in the beginning, but it's cool seeing your journey and seeing everything that you have going on with your projects. So definitely we'll put us in the show notes, all your social media. but we are running close on time, and we always like to ask a few final questions before we let you go. The first one is, now that you've been in the business for a little over 4 years now, but you've also learned a ton from your dad. So what is some advice that you would give your younger self from what you know now? It's also the real estate journey.
Yeah, hard to think of younger self too much because I'm still pretty young in my 20s. I think mainly just you get overwhelmed when you first get into the space of just how much information is out there and get tired of listening to music at work. So then I started down the podcast deep dive, and there's so much information and so many different voices you can hear from, and so many people had so many different opinions. And so just trying to filter out all those different voices and opinions and figure out where your niche is and what you can align with both time and realistic goals. And so I would say also along those lines of just, you don't have to do everything quick. You don't have to get to 100 doors, and more just trying to understand the goal of financial freedom rather than building a nest of doors.
I agree more.
That's great advice.
So what about, so we talked a lot about real estate, right? This podcast is about real estate, but what are some non-real estate hobbies that you like to do outside of that?
Yeah, so I love traveling. I'm on vacation with my college buddies right now in Destin, Florida. I love to rock climb. I put a pause on that right now. It's just how crazy things been for innovations and work. And then I volunteer with a local ministry called Young Life. And so I've really enjoyed doing that. I've done that for almost 8 years now.
What's your favorite place that you've traveled to?
I went to Israel 2 or 3 years ago. And I don't know, I went to New York back in May, and I think Israel still wins. It was amazing. I loved it.
I've been to New York, not Israel.
Yeah, I've heard a few people say Israel, so I might have to add it to the listing.
Maybe. I heard Thailand might be on our list in the future. We'll see.
Yeah, for sure. But our final question, and we like to ask this for everybody who comes on, how can we help Joel in his upcoming year, his upcoming months, in his business? Are you looking for anything in particular? How can we help you as a co-host and our audience?
Yeah, I'll be looking for my next deal at the end of the year. So just trying to, if you find any leads in Kentucky, feel free to send them my way. Otherwise, just I'd say accountability and communication with community and asking questions on where I'm at be great. It's always fun to chat real estate. Not everybody in your friend circle always wants to chat about real estate.
Yeah, we've actually had that discussion with other friends of ours that were like, man, this is all we talk about. And some of their spouses are like, oh my God, again. And we're like, but it's so much fun.
It can change your lives, right?
It can. Okay, so you're looking for deals, and this is in Lexington or in that trifecta area, maybe not Bowling Green, but in the Lexington area-ish?
Lexington, down I-75 towards Tennessee.
Okay. Single family, any kind of particular property like buy box that you're specifically looking for, or you just, you'll go get the deal and see if the numbers work?
Yeah, if it's a 30% discount, I'll look at anything in the worst house, best neighborhood type situation. I've got a foreclosure lead right now that I think it may go on foreclosure auction tomorrow. So we'll see. I don't think I'll get it, but it's in $1 million neighborhood and it doesn't have too much debt on it. Same owner for 60 years. So it marks a lot of check boxes.
So that's what you're doing after you hang up with us, is you're going to go call this person. If it's going to, like you said, it's going tomorrow up for auction?
Oh, yes, it is. No, it's actually going today. So we may have already lost it after the vacation time. But moral of the story, 30% discount, worst house, best neighborhood. That's what I shoot for. Single family's been my niche as far as a 3-bed, 1-bath or somewhere around there.
With value add opportunities.
Yes. Always amazing when there's value add.
I love the 30% discount. Great rule of thumb. So Joel, how can people reach out to you? I know we mentioned your social media. How can people reach out to you if they have any additional questions?
Yeah, that's probably the easiest way on Instagram or Facebook. I think Instagram is Joel Sizemore KY or JS Property Rentals. That's pretty much the easiest way of just reaching out there, giving a follow, saying hi.
Awesome.
And I can confirm it is Joel Sizemore KY on Instagram. And it's spelled exactly how it sounds.
And he's pretty active. He'll answer his DMs if you have questions on his house hack and his renovations. That's going to do it for another episode of the Agent to Investor podcast. Please share, subscribe if you found any value. And you can reach out to me at N Garcia Official on all social platforms, Nico Garcia. And you can reach out to Anna at
I'm Anna Bylik _realtor on Instagram and now Anna Bylik everywhere else. And we are taking requests. If there's anybody that wants to know any topics, curious about something, wants to be a guest, shoot us a message. Let us know. That's how we've gotten some of our ideas is from listeners that are like, hey, do you have an episode about this or that? And so we're always looking for that so we can provide you guys with what you want to hear.
100%. Thank you, Joel. And we'll tune in to the next episode.